All right, is everybody doing all right tonight?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Sir.
Okay. Is this everybody, or are we waiting on anyone else?
Only Seth said he wasn't going to be here, so I don't know about the rest of the guys.
I know Ricky said he wasn't going to be here either.
Well, about 5 more minutes, and then we'll get started. Or if we get any indication that no one else is coming in via last-minute text, we'll just go ahead and get started.
Okay.
Yes. And we're starting phase 2, is that right?
Yeah, this is like the orientation, like the first orientation thing, then the actual first part.
Okay, cool. Man, it was a chore trying to get Teams to work, wasn't it?
Lord, it so was. I'm sorry for making it so confusing. Like,
No, it's good.
Like I was trying to figure out the group chat to make that work because I thought it would be easier, but then the whole email system, and then just it was such a mess.
Oh, God's great earth is calling this office at 7 o'clock. I'm not picking that up. Which is we closed. All right, have we heard anything else?
Nothing else.
Okay. Well, let's just go ahead and get started. This is being recorded, right? So if they want, they can catch this on the recording.
I'm recording it, so we should be good.
All right, everybody. So I want to start off by introducing myself. My name is John Caden Mullen, for any of y'all who don't know me. I graduated in 2014 from JSU. I was a Sigma Nus there. I served as commander, LT, marshal, for a brief second recorder. And so, yeah, that's what I did at the chapter. Tonight we're starting phase 2 of lead. Y'all are probably familiar with lead from phase 1. How I like to view phase 2, at least when I was there. Hey, Carlos. Anyway, how I like to view phase 2, it's just a continuation of phase 1, where phase 1 was focusing primarily on how to be a good candidate. Phase 2 is its focus is how to be a good chapter member and how to be a leader, even though you don't hold an executive position. I think it's really useful. And it's tips and tricks that not only are very helpful for you while you were in JSU and Sigma Nu, but also there are some things, like as I was reviewing this, that I even took notes for myself, because they are great just in the working world outside of school. Now, as this facilitator manual says, phase 2 is focused on giving you skills and experiences you need to be more contributing to as a member in the chapter, to be successful in your roles in the organization. And you will find that, like I said, that these are takeaways that will help build not only a better brotherhood, but a better work example, better drive, and will make you a more desirable employee, and eventually, hopefully, a great boss or supervisor or whatever management position that hopefully you find your way to. That's basically the orientation. It really wants you to do some kind of brotherhood event. So y'all go do something together after this, or don't. It's not like I can tell. And we're just going to move right into session 1. Is that good with everybody?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Sounds good.
So the first session, and I don't know if Ryan has given y'all any kind of handouts or anything related to this. It's called the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So I want y'all to start out with this. Uh, y'all just think about a time where things weren't going well, whether it was a bad week, bad semester, bad period working, and think about why did it feel like things were going bad and why exactly was it happening? Most of the time, you can't just wait on a problem to go away. And I'm sure every one of y'all who are an exec knows about that. You can't just put things under the rug and hope for the best, because unfortunately, things start to fester after a while. So one quote that Sigma Nus likes to tell everybody, and I think is a good one, is until you begin to fight the challenges within you, you cannot succeed. I think that's appropriate for today's session, because sometimes the difference between being successful and failing is being able to look inward and see what habits, what methods, what are you doing to make the situation better. And I know for a fact there have been plenty of times where I have done things because of bad habits that I have that have made situations worse. But also there have been times where luckily I had some best practices that I relied on during my positions that made things a lot easier. And so there's 7 habits that are very important. I'm going to go over all 7 real quick as an overview, and then we're going to get into the specifics. The first habit is to be proactive. The second, to begin with the end in mind. The third, to put the first things first. 4, think win-wins. 5, seek first to understand and then to be understood. 6, to synergize, and 7, to sharpen the saw. So one of the ways that I think is the best way to think about your habits and what is a habit is think of things like your skills. That's what you know how to do. Then you have your desires on what you want to do. And then you have knowledge, which is what to or why to do something. And when you get all 3 of those, your wants, your how-tos, and your knowing what needs to be done, you can start at that point to form what is a habit, which is knowing how to do something, to wanting to do it, which is a very important part of a habit, and what to do, because without knowing what to do or why you're doing it, then really the rest falls apart. And so the first habit is to be proactive. And I want you to think about, how do you feel when things happen to you or things are imposed on you, especially where you don't have a choice? Now, no one likes to feel forced to do something. I absolutely hated in undergrad as a candidate when my pledge marshal told me that I had to do something that I didn't want to do. I hated as marshal when my candidates would do something that I thought was incredibly stupid and I had to do something about it that I didn't want to. And as lieutenant commander, when I enforced rules for my commander, and as commander having to be the bad guy because nationals wanted us to stop doing something. And I hated every bit of that. But what's important to realize is that's what drives your proactiveness. Proactivity is driven by your values, where reactivity is driven by feelings, emotions, and circumstances. So, for example, when I was lieutenant commander, and I don't know if we still do this, but I started instituting an honor board system more. And I tried to keep the fraternity more stable and have a right way of dealing with grievances through this honor board, because I noticed that when people quit doing stuff, we had a lot of inward fighting in our group me's, or it would trickle over into when we would have parties or gatherings where brothers would either argue or not speak to each other, and it would cause a lot of tension. So we set up the honor board as a way to try to nip that in the bud, create this systematic thing to where two brothers aren't fighting. It was me, the LT, bringing up grievances from the chapter against a certain brother in a way that would be friendly, but also professional and not injure the overall status of the fraternity, both inside and out. And so that's one of those, that's an example of being proactive. Regarding the chapter, what's some other ideas that y'all think could be a proactive thing that the chapter could do instead of a reactive on how we might have in the past? Anyone?
Could you rephrase the question?
Yeah. What are
so.
some things? Just take a moment to think about some things that you could do on a daily or weekly basis that would make you more proactive as a student or a fraternity member. That would help instead of relying on feelings and emotions in a reactive way.
I guess like maybe study more and like try to get along with people and like, you know, being able to resolve differences easily, I guess.
Yeah, sure. Any other ideas?
I think of setting up a fair way to decide something, have a third party come in if there's an argument. Something along the lines of that. Something more logical that has a set of rules, set of orders that you can follow, and it's fair.
I agree. I think that's when you insert a third party, someone that's neutral, you definitely can be more proactive in fixing things rather than just letting the two parties sock it out themselves in a disorderly fashion.
Yeah, totally agree. You throw like Palmer in there, who is always neutral, and it's gonna get solved.
Yeah. And it's always good to have that one brother that's always known to be the neutral guy who's always the peacemaker. All right, and let's move on to the second habit, and it's titled Begin with the End in Mind. I want y'all to take a moment and I'm going to read this story that they've provided me, and I want y'all to think about this as I read it. See yourself going to a funeral of a loved one. Picture yourself driving to the funeral parlor, parking the car, getting out, and walking to the front door. As you walk inside the building, you notice the flowers and some organ music. You see the faces of friends and family that you pass along the way. You feel the shared sorrow of loss and the joy of having known that person. And as you walk through the front of the room, you look inside the casket and you come face to face with yourself. This is your funeral. All of these people have come to honor you, to express their feeling of love and appreciation. And as you take a seat and wait for the service to begin, you look at the program in hand. There are to be 4 speakers. One is going to be someone from your family, maybe your brother, a sister, maybe even your parents. The second is one of your friends who knew you as a person outside of the family. The third is someone from your fraternity, someone that knew you in college and had hopefully a lot of good memories of you. And the fourth is someone from your church or whatever organization that you're a part of. Now, think about 3 words that they would put on your tombstone. And those 3 words should be how you want to be remembered. And that's the whole idea. You begin with the end in mind. There's a quote in Stoicism called "Mori Mori," which means the end is near. I think it's a highly successful habit to think about where your end goal is, not only in the fraternity, where do you want to end up position-wise, relationship-wise, student-wise, what kind of grades do you want to make, where do you see yourself after college, but also as life. I think it's something that at the end of the day, unfortunately, life has a 100% mortality rate. And the things that you do now while you're in college set you up to be the person that you're going to be outside of college. And breaking the habits, any bad habits that you have in college, will be very difficult, while continuing the good habits that you set up in college will become quite easy. I have a lot of friends that made great decisions, and they're now doing very well for themselves. I also have a lot of friends that made poor decisions, and I've seen them in handcuffs. I came face to face with one of them while I was clerking in a courthouse. He was being arrested, and I have one or two that are dead now because of bad habits that they set up for themselves in college and in high school. And I think that's something that, while morbid, is to be remembered. Begin with your end in mind, because no good project starts without an end goal. You never run a race without knowing where the end is. And I think that is something that we need to begin with, not only in your life, but especially you can transfer this over to the fraternity. And that before you say this thing to a brother, what's your end result? Before you have this mixer, what's the end goal of the mixer? Before you interact with a brother, like if one's pissed you off and you say something to him, what's your end goal? Are you just mad and wanting to let off steam? Okay, but what's the end goal? You make the group me erupt in an argument. You cause your lieutenant commander unnecessary headache. You cause Jarrett to once again just hate being commander, because don't let anyone lie to you. By the time you finish up your commander term, you absolutely hate it. And yeah. So just before you do anything, think of what you believe, what you will do, what you will strive to do, and what you value before you start anything. Now, the third habit is to put first things first. Now, what do y'all think should be some of the first things in life? Like, what do you value?
Family, happiness, and probably just relationships in general.
Okay. What's something that you think you could do on a daily basis that would be better? Just something daily. What do you need to do?
Probably just something in general that.
Yeah, it's something that could help you.
Probably just studying more for classes, and making sure that I'm keeping up with the people that I love, basically.
Yeah. So according to Sigma Nus, under the lead manual, there's a criteria. It's a quadrant, if you will, an X and a Y axis. And you have two categories, urgent and important. Now, these two might seem like they're the same, because we use those two kind of in as synonyms nowadays, but think of it like this. Urgent is something that you can see in front of you. They normally have a visual effect. It's something that you feel, that it is constantly on you. And then there's importance. Importance is not as much about what's in front of you as much as what's down the road. It's a results problem. So urgents are problems, importance are normally results. And Sigma Nus creates this quadrant, and I do not know if Ryan has given you this handout, but on the facilitator list, it gives you 4 quadrants of urgent and important, important but not urgent, urgent but not important, and not urgent and not important. For example, an urgent and important matter is something like a crisis, pressing problems, or something that's deadline driven. Like, for example, I have something that's urgent as well as important on my desk right now. I have a set of discovery that I've got to get done for this case by the end of the week. If I don't get this discovery done, then our client will be admitting to everything that's in that piece of paper. And that's bad for us. And so I have a deadline-driven project with results that matter. So not only is it urgent because it's coming up on the end of the week, but it's also important because its results have ripple effects that will affect the rest of this case. Something else that is important but not urgent is something like preparation and planning. While it's not urgent, I've planned for this, on Monday, I looked at my week and I planned everything out, but it is important because if I don't plan and if I don't prepare for everything, then I'm caught by surprise and I have those crises that's both urgent and important. And so then you go into urgent but not important. An urgent thing would be like some mail, some reports, maybe a meeting, but mostly popular activities. It's something that you see, and it's something that you could argue has some results down the line, but not really. One of the things is, in order to give this lead session, I skipped going to the gym today. Is the gym urgent? Yeah, it's something that every time I look in the mirror, I definitely see the need to do. But is it important in the grand scheme of things? According to this week, it's really not. It's one day out of the week that I don't go to the gym. Not that big of a deal. And then you have the not urgent and not important, kind of the filler stuff that most of the time seems like the most fun, but is not really the most successful when it comes to habit forming. This is such as TV, watching the internet, any kind of trivia or busy work, that sort of things. Anything that can waste your time. And in that quadrant, it's the most quadrant that we want to avoid as successful people. All 3 of these other ones really have some purpose. But this 4th quadrant is simply a time waster. And you need to make sure to limit that as much as you can because it's easy to get stuck in. According to Sigma Nus, little facilitator, quadrant 4, the not important and not urgent quadrant, is the area that many students get stuck in because it includes activities such as surfing the web, playing video games, and other time wasters. The effective people stay out of quadrant 3 and 4, urgent or not, because they are not important. They shrink quadrant 1 down to size by spending more time in quadrant 2. And quadrant 2, the not urgent but important, that planning quadrant, is the heart of effective personal management. It deals with things that are not urgent but are also important and allows for you to plan in a way that ensures that nothing becomes urgent. So I just want y'all to sit down and think about some things in your life that categorize what quadrant are you spending your most time in. Are you doing things that are urgent and also important? And is that leaving you stressed out and tired? Are you spending your time in 3 that's urgent but not really important? And while you see immediate success, it doesn't really help you down the line? Or are you stuck in quadrant 4 and you find yourself doing stuff like watching TV, playing video games, and you're neglecting stuff such as any kind of fraternity matters, homework, a job even, that makes you spend so much time in quadrant 4, everything else is in quadrant 1. So I just want y'all to think about that for a second and maybe come up with some goals on your own to figure out where everything in your life fits in those 4 quadrants and how you can get out of 3 and 4, spend less time in 1, and ensure that you're practicing 2 repeatedly. The 4th habit is the think win-win. I know for a fact that when there's a difference of agreeance in the fraternity, everybody wants their way. And really, if you don't get that way, you feel like you've lost. And that's unfortunate. A lot of people carry that off into the future and outside of school. Thinking win-win. If there's a problem, and instead of trying to get your side to be 100% right, if you come forward and go, hey, this is the problem, this is where you are, this is where I am, let's try to shave off what's not important. Let's figure out what's important to both of us and see if we can come up with an agreement that we both get what's important, or at least we both get as much of what's important without completely negating what the other side wants. If you start thinking in that way, you'll realize that not only are you happier at the end of the conflict, but you're also going to have less of it because it sees life as cooperative and not competitive. And everybody at the end of the day will feel like they've gotten something out of it. The 5th is to seek first and then to be understood. So Sigma Nus likes to categorize there's 5 levels of listening. Number 1, which is what I did in most of my lead sessions, was ignoring, where you don't really listen at all. Number 2 is what I did if I had my camera on, which is pretending, and you respond to verbal and nonverbal cues with kind of your stock answers of yeah, right, and things such as that. 3, to be completely honest, in the fraternity, that was if I was in an argument with someone, this is what I would do in my level of listening, which is selective. I'd hear only certain parts of the conversation, things I was watching out for buzzwords or things in my head that I wanted to latch on to, that way I could use later. 4 is attentive listening. It's actually paying attention and focusing your energy on the words being spoken. And that seems, most everybody kind of stops there and says that's the active listening, and that's what we need to be doing. Sigma Nus, on the other hand, says that there's a 5th level, one that very few of us, if ever, practice the 5th level, which is empathetic listening. Empathetic listening means listening with the intent to understand, seeking first to understand where someone's coming from, really understand it. You get inside the other person's frame of reference, the world they see, and how they're looking at this situation, and so you can understand what paradigm they're coming from. That is something that will be completely useful in whatever field that you're going into, because as college graduates, you're expected to eventually climb the ladder into some kind of managerial position. Or let's take, if you're an officer in the military, you need to be able to understand not only what your higher ups, but also those soldiers below you and what they're thinking. You need to be empathetic and that's how you're successful, by knowing what they're thinking and also why they're thinking it. Because once you know why they're thinking it, you can form the rest of your conversation understanding where they're coming from and being able to guide them using their paradigm to the result that you want and the one that you need, which is a very highly successful trait. The 6th is to synergize. To be honest, no one really knows what synergy means. It's just a word that's used, and so Sigma Nus likes to break it down into how can you work together. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts, which means that in the case for the fraternity, you have one commander, one LT, a chaplain, a recorder, a marshal, and your sentinel. And those 6 make up the EC. Individually, every one of those positions can do something. But together, they can do a lot more than what 6 of them could do on their own. A unified EC can change the entire viewpoint of a chapter, because most of the time the EC are made of the most respected men in the chapter. And so think about that. Think about when you're working with someone or you're working with a group, you can build on each other's strengths and support each other's weaknesses to do something that, although it might be 6 of you, you could be able to do the work of 10 people because you understand each other's strengths and weaknesses and you know how to work together with that. And then finally, my favorite is the 7th habit, which is sharpening the saw. Sigma Nus likes to describe it as this. Suppose you come upon a man in the woods and he's working feverishly to saw down a tree. You walk up to him and ask, "What are you doing?" Impatiently, he replies, "Can't you see I'm sawing down this tree?" You look at him and go, "You look exhausted. How long have you been doing this?" And he replies, "Over 5 hours. It's beat and it's hard work and it takes forever." So you look at him and go, "Well, why don't you take a break for a few minutes and sharpen the saw? I'm sure it would go faster if you gave it that little bit of time." And he looks at you as if you're crazy and says, "I don't have time to sharpen the saw. I'm too busy sawing." The moral of the story is, if you don't take time to stop, rest, renew yourself, you will not be as effective as you could be. This is something that I had to learn the hard way in law school because I thought I could do it all. I thought I could have a social life. I thought I could study. I thought I could go to the gym. I thought I could eat well. I thought I could also be involved in extracurriculars, be involved in intramural competitions, all of that. And eventually, by the end of my 2nd year, I was so worn out that I didn't want to leave my room. Every little bit felt like it was just, I was walking through just sludge everywhere. And it was because I wasn't giving myself time to rest, to heal, and sharpen my saw back up for the next week. And so there's a few things that you can do to help sharpen your saw. First off is physical sharpening. It's a known science that when you work out, when you run, when you eat right, you're going to feel better. I know in college that the idea of the midnight run to Taco Bell or to Little Caesars Pizza is enticing. Just remember that the habits you form in college are also the ones that you keep outside of college. And that 10 a.m. McDonald's run when you're 20, not a big deal. Take it from experience. Once you're 25 and you've been at the office now about 12 hours, that McDonald's run is not going to do you any favors later. The second is spiritual, and this is what I find to be the most helpful. To me, I'm a religious person. I'm a Christian, and that helps me reflect on what's important. I can work as hard as I possibly can, but according to my worldview, at the end it will be for naught because I can't take any of this to heaven with me. So take that time to reflect on yourself. If you're spiritual, reflect on the higher meanings of whatever you believe and use that to sharpen your saw, because I can guarantee you, for at least most of the major religions, the things that you do day in and day out won't matter as much if you're not coming at it with the right attitude and the right heart, because it'll eventually spoil the works that you do. Third is your mental and academics. Believe it or not, classes, reading, intellectual conversations, and other ways to stimulate thinking are good for you. Now, you need to do all this in moderation, obviously, but to take a step back and to quit focusing on the fraternity and learn something, or classes, break up how you study, give yourself a study break, then go on to another subject. All of these helps keep your mind active and keeps you from going into a lull. This will keep your brain up and alert, and you'll be able to focus on more tasks because you haven't been staring at the same piece of paper for hours on end. And then finally is the social or emotional aspect. For many people, you can spend too much time in the books, or as an EC member in the fraternity, you can spend so much of your time focusing on your job in the fraternity that you forget to have fun in the fraternity. It's no secret, by the time I was commander, I'd spent so much time doing my job and some other people's jobs that I was burnt out, and I hated being at the fraternity house because I never got to relax. So during your time in the fraternity, and if you do decide to run for an office, I implore you to make sure that you don't take things so serious that you're never able to turn off that switch of what needs to be done. Because I can guarantee you there's always going to be one thing that you can do better at the fraternity. There's always going to be one thing better you can do in your academics or in your job. Make sure to turn that switch off from time to time and remember why you're doing these things. That way you can support a lifestyle that is fun and enjoyable. In the fraternity, you're paying to have a group of guys have fun and to have fun with. And then eventually you form a brotherhood and a bonding to where it's no longer paying to have fun, but you're still part of this culture that you enjoy being around each other. And I think that's an important thing to sharpen your soul by remembering that it's okay to have fun. So that is the 7 successful habits of an effective person. You have these 7 that if you sit down and you reflect on these, that all of them will build together and will synergize together to make you extremely successful. And it's to be proactive, to begin with the end in mind, put the first things first, think win-win on everything, to seek to understand rather than to be understood, to synergize with people, and to sharpen your saw by understanding that there is another day for things. Not to put everything off, but to at least enjoy. And so that's pretty much the wrap up. There are some follow-up questions and things that they want you to ask. Most of these are in handouts as I look through them, which we really aren't going to go through. So I'm just going to leave you with a few questions of think about what you can do in your day-to-day life to make yourself more successful, to form habits that, sure, in college they might not be as rewarding at first, but eventually as you leave college thinking with the end in mind and you go on into the workplace, what is something that you can do that will set you up for success? And one way you can do that is think about some things you'll do differently because of these. And so that's really everything regarding the 7 habits of a highly effective person. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I don't know, Ryan, if you're going to give any kind of handouts or anything after this regarding this exercise. I wish I could have done this in person, guys, but we're just trying to figure out teams and all that. So were there any questions?
I don't think I had any questions. I'll print out some of the handouts on there and I'll give them to the sophomores just so they can understand like the gist. The more they can go deeper in with it.
Yeah, and I will say I will say Teams is not the preferred way because to me, it's hard to connect with everybody. Most of the time, I like to ask questions. I like to point at people and get their thoughts and all that. Can't really do that on Teams. But yeah, I will say, guys, all these are cliche, and it's easy to view these as just checking a box. Some of these habits can be really helpful, and it's something that I wish when I was an undergrad we took more of an effort to understand and do lead, because it might not be in this phase, but for y'all it might be phase 4, where certain things are extremely helpful, for not just in your college career, but once you get out. And so I implore y'all to kind of look through these and see really what you can do. But that's it. But yeah.
Hey, Caden. I
Hey.
was here the whole time, I promise. I just want to thank you again for doing it. Obviously, I agree with you on the Teams aspect of things. I don't like it being on Teams, but kind of running short on time, so kind of making it work the way we can. However, I do want you to keep in mind next semester, if you have any availability, to please get with one of us, and we'll do more in person. Obviously, that's the goal. So
yeah. Well, for sure, we'll just have to. I don't know if I moved up to Tennessee. I accepted a job up in Tennessee, so I'm a little bit further out than where I was. I'm no longer just about an hour drive. I think about 2.5 to 3 hours away. But yeah, I would love to. In the future, we can get together and plan something. Y'all just reach out to me whenever. If y'all ever do like a planning session where y'all plan out like a calendar for the academic year, just hit me up and we can plan something.
awesome. Congratulations! I didn't know about your job, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And yeah, we're gonna get a schedule going. I know Ryan's already scheduled some stuff throughout this the next couple of months, so we're gonna go ahead and do some of those.
Good. All right, well, that's everything on my end, guys. I don't know if Jared or Ryan has anything else for y'all, but as far as I'm concerned, y'all are free to go.
I'm good. Ryan, you good?
Yeah, I believe so. Thanks again, John Kane. I really appreciate it. I appreciate, all like having to deal with the whole Teams thing. I'm glad you weren't stressed out about that, because I know I stressed myself over that, but I really appreciate it. And I believe I had planned for you to do the ending lead session for phase 2 as well. Like the ending one. But we can talk about that further down the line, because that'll be in a few months.
Okay, yeah, the wrap up session, no problem.
Yeah.
Just get me on a date, and I can put it in the calendar, and I can see if I can make the trip down and do it in person or whichever.
Awesome. Okay, I'll do that.
As far as everybody else in the room, please keep in mind we have all chapter coming up too. Check your Outlook calendars. Martin should have put them in there, so make sure you keep an eye out for those.
All right, see y'all.
Thank you again.
Guys, thank you.
No problem.